Hello, hello. Good morning. Happy Tuesday. Let's go ahead and get me live on Instagram. Ooh, my hair looks horrible today. Should probably fix that. You know what it is? I washed my hair on Sunday. It's Tuesday, and I used the flat iron. And by Tuesday, after doing a couple workouts, all the curls come back out. Oh, just a little bit of talk before we go live on Instagram. I should have shared that with them too. Good morning, Instagram family. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. How did I test this last time? I think I just did this. All right. Yes, I'm live and y'all can hear me. Happy Tuesday. It's the day after Labor Day. It's a new month, and I hope you guys are feeling so excited for a new season. I don't know what it is about this September that made me really feel the vibes of like the seasonal change. And I'm going to be honest, in Florida, we don't get seasons. We get like extremely hot and humid to like moderately hot and not so humid is really what we get. But I will say this. I had a lot of moments of reflection over the last couple of days because I took a little bit of time off. And one of the biggest things that resonated with me about September is it often gets overlooked as such a good month to reset, start new habits, really work with intent in our life and things that we want to change or improve. I think a lot of people focus a lot on January, but I'm going to be honest, September, October, November is 12 solid weeks of you being able to really focus on building some new habits, building some new changes, and hopefully making some progress on your goals. And it's coming off of the summer season when people don't realize, people think the winter is hard, but the summer is equally as hard in the fact that there's a lot less structure. A lot of people have more time off, more vacations. In fact, I think it's a little bit more difficult than the winter because we are more social, I think, in the summer because of the weather being so nice and all that stuff. The winter, obviously, you're going to have, it's in colder climates. It's not as nice to go out for walks and stuff like that. Yeah, there's the holidays, but I think this summer really lends itself more to socializing and partying more so than the winter time. So it is September. It is also the kickoff of my 4-week jumpstart, and I'm very excited for that. A new group of people jumping in and hopefully going to get them off to a good start in our program, and that's going to be awesome. But today I want to talk a little bit about reverse dieting, and I feel like it's kind of gotten brushed under the rug for quite some time, and I feel like a lot of people are being left to their own devices trying to figure out how they should be increasing their calories to make sure they're eating enough to support their goals, and without putting on body fat or without feeling bloated and puffy all the time. Like that's really what it is. And this topic came to mind because I actually had somebody reach out to me, and she had went online and found an online calculator that had told her how much she should be eating. And I don't exactly remember the exact terminology that she used, but it was essentially like, I just was eating all of these carbs, and I was feeling so bloated and puffy and miserable all the time, and I didn't get anywhere. So, and this is where it's like application is so much more important than just education, right? So, yeah, you can be told you're not eating enough. You need to be eating more food. And then you're given this online calculation and you're like, well, maybe I'll just start eating that. And then you're like, God, this is so much food. And there's so many things that matter. So today what I want to do is I want to talk to you guys about reverse dieting, application of it, what exactly it is if you don't already know, and hopefully help you plan how to do this appropriately for where you're at in your journey. So first off, what is reverse dieting? Essentially, it's just dieting in reverse. It's most people know dieting as eating less. And when you are reverse dieting, you are trying to increase your calorie intake. Or increase your food volume. So maybe you've seen a significant amount of weight loss and you're happy with your results. You're going to go through a reverse diet to find your maintenance. You can't continue to live in a deficit. You'll end up metabolically adapting, and then it will be very hard for you to maintain your weight. So the reverse diet makes maintenance a lot easier. Reverse dieting can also be used in situations where somebody has been under eating unintentionally for a long period of time and their body has adapted. And now maybe they have put on weight. Maybe it started off as a deficit. They went through a stressful season and now they're like just living on poverty calories and macros. And it seems like every time they try and increase food, even though they know that's going to make them feel better, it just seems like it doesn't work. Maybe you're stuck in like a vicious cycle of like, you eat so little, but then your cravings kick in and like all of a sudden you overeat. And it's this constant battle of never really consistently feeding your body enough food. You need to know how much food you should be eating on a consistent basis, not just in snapshots of your week when you go out socially. So reverse dieting is a very important part of everybody's journey if you are not currently consuming enough calories and the right types of calories and nutrients to ensure that your body is optimized to look and feel your best. So that's why I wanted to make sure I touched on what exactly it is. Now, here is what a lot of people do, and it's not wrong, but it's just being misapplied. Let's just say you think that you need a reverse diet, or maybe you don't even know that you need a reverse diet. You decide, I want to dial in my nutrition because I'm trying to lose weight. And what I'm doing right now isn't working for me. Or I want to dial in my nutrition because I just don't feel like I'm performing as well as I could. I want to optimize my nutrition for performance. You go online, or you reach out to a coach, or you get an online macro calculation, and it looks like entirely too much food for you. You're like, whoa, 300 grams of carbs is a lot of carbs. And you're like trying to count where you're getting all your carbs from in your day. And you're like, I maybe have like an apple, and then I have like some rice at dinner, and maybe I'll have some oats, and you're like barely at 100. You're like, how the hell am I going to eat all those carbs, right? So the biggest thing is that when people go online, find these calculations, they're missing the mark on knowing what it looks like to see what your current intake looks like. How many calories are you currently consuming on a regular basis? And getting a weekly average with a food audit is where you should start. It's not saying not to get the online calculation. It's just saying we're not just going to go jump right into that. We're going to actually figure out where we are in relation to what this online calculation says. And the second piece about this online calculation is the most important number that I want you guys to look at is your BMR, your basal metabolic rate. By the way, if you're looking for the most accurate way to set your, the most accurate online calculator, you want to use one that uses the Mifflin-St. Jean equation. Or if you reach out to me, I can help you with that for free, no cost, because that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to use the Mifflin-St. Jean equation, but I will also take into consideration a few other things based on my assessment. However, the BMR is the number that you want to look at that's going to be the base, right? And even that number can be off based on how much lean muscle mass you have, based on what your current digestive health and metabolic health is like. But that gives you a good idea of like, okay, this is my body's needs at complete rest. And when you're doing your 7-day food audit that I'm going to recommend, which by the way is simply just for 7 days, weighing and tracking all of your food, everything you're consuming, Sunday to Saturday, whether you're going out to eat and having pizza and wings, or it's Monday morning and you're having a protein shake and coffee, like everything that you're having, to get an average account for your weekly average. That will tell you what your current intake is like. And then when you have that, you can compare it to your online calculation. The BMR is going to be your basal metabolic rate. This is your body's needs without any activity factored in. No digestion, no thinking, no breathing, or I guess maybe breathing, but no living your life, no washing your hair, no driving to work, no workouts, no eating, none of that stuff. It's just your body's needs to like lay in a bed as a vegetable and stay alive. Okay. So if you were on life support, that's your body's needs. If you're eating considerably under that or very close to it, and you're also working out and you have an active life, you need to be eating more than that. So you want to know where you're at there. Okay. So the first thing is knowing that when you're looking at these online calculations, you don't want to just go head first into looking to reach those online macro calculations. You need to see where you're currently at and work slowly to increase that to those numbers. Now, the next piece of these online calculations, as I already kind of started to talk to you about, is they're still not 100% accurate. I mentioned BMR not being overly accurate, but also digestion. Everybody's gut health is different. People absorb different amounts of nutrients. It can overshoot your activity level. And this is why it's important that when you are going through a reverse diet, the online calculator becomes almost like a standard. So it's kind of like if you're a CrossFitter, you go to the gym and you see the workout of the day and there's an RX on the board, right? And you know that a lot of people might be under or over that. Maybe you have some competitors in the gym that are, adding some weight or making the higher skill movements instead of the lower skill movements. Or maybe you have something that's brand new and they're scaling with like a lighter, easier movement or lighter weights, right? So it's the same thing here. That's like a base. And we want to use some data to make sure that you're doing it the right way. Okay. And we're going to go into that later on. We're going to talk about how to actually go through this process the right way. But I want to cover some other things first before I get into that. So why do we want to reverse diet? Why is this even impactful, right? Especially if you're like, Cheryl, I'm like 20 pounds overweight and I feel like shit all the time. And all I want to do is not feel fat. And you're telling me that I need to eat more, right? So why do we want to do this? We have to be looking for some warning signs that your body is not in a good metabolic state or even a mental state to be in a fat loss phase. And if you've been chronically under eating and your weight's not going down, that's a red flag. So other red flags or signs that you might need a reverse diet are things like maybe your sleep is off. You're very inconsistent sleep. Maybe your energy isn't feeling great. Maybe your appetite is inconsistent. You can go from having cravings to like not being hungry for days. Maybe your recovery just doesn't feel as good. Maybe you're feeling a little bit puffy and bloated. And maybe you know that you're significantly under the calculations that are prescribed to you from an online calculator and your weight is going up or it's not going anywhere, right? Like those are all like warning signs that you probably do need to be eating more food. Okay. So the next thing that I want to kind of cover is knowing if you are considering going into a reverse diet, what to expect and how long it should take. Okay. If you think that you are somebody who has been under eating and you need to go through a reverse diet, the length of time that you're going to spend reverse dieting is going to be very, very individualized based on how far off that TDEE you are from the online calculation, how long you've been dieting for and how long you've been far off for. Also things like how much body fat you currently have. That matters. How much activity you're doing, how poor your feedback is, and how much your body can handle. So everybody's digestion is going to be able to handle a different amounts. Another big consideration is knowing how long it should take is knowing what kind of diet you're coming from. So if you're somebody that's coming from a low carb diet, reverse dieting might take a little bit longer because carbs are something that you haven't allowed your body to digest in a long time. And we don't want to just throw a bunch of carbs in your system. You're going to feel bloated. You're going to feel puffy. Your weight's going to go up. You're not going to be happy, right? We want to slowly introduce things. It really comes down to making sure that the reverse dieting phase should not be painful. It should not be uncomfortable. In fact, if anything, it should make you feel really freaking good. Every week you should be like, man, I'm feeling a little bit better today. This is awesome. That's the goal of a reverse diet. Okay. So here are some important considerations when we are looking to do a reverse diet. One of the things you want to consider is your current body fat percentage. That does play a factor. Knowing if you are somebody that is significantly overweight, we probably don't need to do a huge reverse diet. It's mostly at that place. It's usually a case of under eating followed by overeating. Where a person will go through periods of time where they're under eating and then overfeeding. So we just have to find that middle ground to stop that restriction and binge, which will help regulate the metabolism and get your body feeling fed on your workout days while still allowing you some flexibility without overdoing it on those days where you want to be able to enjoy food a little bit. We need to know what your current goals are. So are you looking to lose body fat primarily? Are you looking to lose body fat, get leaner, and you want to also perform better in the gym? Are you just looking to perform better in the gym and you're feeling puffy and bloated and you know that you need to be eating more food? How is your relationship with food? All right. So going back into diet history, we need to know what your diet history looks like. This will also impact how long it takes to the reverse diet, because dieting is not just a physical endeavor. It is a mental one as well. And if you've got a lot of diet baggage, we probably need to go a little bit slower in the reverse diet for your comfort level. If I told you to add 50 grams of carbs today, you might freak out. But if I told you that's also only 200 calories, which is about the same amount as 2 tablespoons of peanut butter, not a big deal, right? Like, so it's also knowing that food relationship matters too. Looking at nutrient deficiencies, going back into diet history, if you have been under consuming carbs for a long time or under consuming fats for a long time, we're going to need to make strategic ways to reintroduce these foods to your diet without making you feel uncomfortable, without upsetting the gut, and making sure that you're doing it in a way that doesn't cause crazy weight spikes, because we also know that the scale can be a bitch and we all want to have some control over that. Looking at the types of food you're consuming, right? So food quality does matter, and the volume is going to impact how quickly we can reverse diet. So if somebody's under consuming fats versus carbs, it's a little bit quicker for the reverse diet, because adding fats to your diet doesn't typically cause as much GI distress as adding in more carbs because of the volume of carbs. And I say that also knowing that some people might also have more digestive distress with adding fats, because if you've been eating a very low fat diet, there could be some issues with digestion of fats because your body doesn't have as many enzymes. So there's a number of things that we have to look at when we're doing that. The calorie density of our food also plays a factor in that. And then also looking at the macronutrients that you're short on. So I've had clients come to me, they're eating way too much protein and not enough carbs and fats. And that can be a slippery slope, because as I'm decreasing protein, they're going to eat less. But I'm like, no, we got to refill those calories with carbs and fats. And that can be also a little bit of a battle. Okay. So here's what you should expect in a reverse diet. I already kind of mentioned this, but we should be looking to balance out meals. There shouldn't be components missing from your meals or your diet. So making sure that we have protein, carbs, fats, and obviously making sure our meals taste good. We want to rebuild that balance. Again, the length of time is going to be reflective of your diet history and your comfort level, making sure that you're feeling good in the process. You might see a weight fluctuation of maybe 2 or 3 pounds in the beginning if you have not been consuming a lot of carbohydrates. And here is why. Because carbohydrates are going to store water in your muscles as glycogen. So when you do increase your carbohydrate stores, you will have more water in your muscles as glycogen. That is a good thing and what you want. Your body will start to get used to it, and you will start to burn through that glycogen, which is when energy levels come up. It's when performance gains happen and all of the magic happens. Okay. So let's go into how to actually apply reverse dieting for you, because this is what you guys are here for. I know I need to be eating more food, but I'm very insecure about doing it. And I'm going to start by telling you this. I had somebody ask me if I do online calculations for macros. Yes, I do. Okay. But if you have not already jumped into my Jumpstart, that is what we are doing. We are starting today. Registration is already closed, but I'm that coach who, if I can get a few more people in my circle who are going to do things the right way, I am totally okay with you jumping in at the last minute. But you're going to have to DM me FitBody, and I might be a little bit delayed getting your assessment over to you, but I will make sure that my assistant gets you the link so that you can come on the group call or you can watch the recording. And I'm going to be taking you through 4 weeks, which if this is you, this will help you. Because as much as it says it's a fat loss jumpstart, for a lot of you guys out there, in order for you to jumpstart fat loss, this is the missing piece. You need to know what your calorie ceiling is and how to use that to create a sustainable and predictable fat loss plan. Or if your goals are not fat loss, you're like, maybe I thought my goals were fat loss, but damn, does it feel good to be eating enough food right now? That's my goal. Okay. So here's how we're going to do a reverse diet. Whether you're jumping in on my Jumpstart, whether you reach out to me and you want to work with me one-on-one to do this, or whether you want to do it on your own. I'm not gatekeeping today. I'm giving you the tools because I want you to be able to do it. And if I can help somebody today make progress in their journey without ever working with me, in fact, little plug, there is a client, she follows me. She just joined in the Jumpstart. Her name is Deb. If you're listening to this, Deb, so freaking proud of you. She reached out to me months ago, and we have never done any kind of coaching together. She applied everything I told her to do in that first interaction, and she's down like 25 pounds. That's what I want. If I can give you the tools and you're doing it, like, I'm happy. Okay. So I'm getting a little bit riled up. It's got to be the caffeine. Side note, guys, little story before I get into how to do this. I am an instant coffee drinker. Don't judge me. I have an espresso, but if you have an espresso, I don't know about you, but it doesn't get hot enough. And I like a big cup of coffee. So rather than buying a coffee pot, I've just been relying on instant coffee for I don't know how many years. And I do have a little blend that I like. It's I use the Cafe Bustelo, which if I was going to recommend a instant coffee, that's the one I would recommend. It's an espresso. And I do add a scoop I do half calf. So I'll do a scoop of decaf and a scoop of the full calf because I do 2 of these big cups a day and only in the morning before 9 o'clock. But I just invested in a freaking coffee pot and I'm so excited to get some really good coffee. But I'm sipping on my coffee now. And that's why I want to say that. I think the caffeine's talking. Okay. So let's get into how to do a reverse diet. First and foremost, you've got to give yourself about 4 weeks. I don't think it should take more than 4 weeks to complete a reverse diet unless you are dealing with a lot of diet baggage. If you have a lot of diet baggage, it might take you a little bit longer because there is a mental component of actually committing to the changes. And that might be something that we have to work through. But it should not take you more than 4 weeks to reverse diet. Because here's the real reality, guys. There's only so much you can be under eating, right? A reverse diet should not be more than 500 to 800 calories-ish. If it's more than that, then there's more other things going on in terms of what you're doing on a daily basis from restriction to binge. You probably are having a few outlier days that are way, way, way higher than you realize. So it should not take more than 4 weeks for you to regulate this. So if you've been trying to reverse diet for like 6 months to 12 months and you're getting nowhere, give yourself 4 weeks of going all in on that. And that's why I'm plugging the Jumpstart, because if you want this for you, it is a good opportunity for you. Again, we start today. Today is the day. So if you want in, you got to DM FitBody. All right. So you're giving yourself 4 weeks. Now, the reverse diet will take you about 4 weeks. But from there, it's going to depend on how recovered you feel after that, on when you should go back into a deficit. Okay. So anywhere from 4 to 12 weeks is probably a good place for you to have a diet break if you've been constantly chronically underfed. But this is where you have to know best. And you have to know that you don't have to go to an extreme deficit to be successful. And that might only cause this whole process to have to happen all over again. You're better off dropping 15-ish% off of your calorie ceiling when we find it after your reverse diet, okay? But giving yourself a break. You might get to the end of your reverse diet, like, man, I feel really good. You know what? Like, let me just hang out here for 12 weeks. If you've spent the last 5 to 7 years chronically being underfed and overfed, like, why not give yourself, 6 months of feeling really good? Like, you don't have to take that long, but if you want to, you can. Again, this comes down to how much fat loss matters in terms of an aesthetic goal versus an actual health, or I need to do this for my health goal, right? Okay, let's talk about how to do it though. I already mentioned part 1. Coffee's done. That means I've got your full attention, or you've got my full attention. Okay. Step number 1 is we need to have that 7-day food audit. All right. We can go ahead and figure out what that online calculation says you should be eating for maintenance, but we want that 7-day food audit. That means for 7 days, you are going to have a food tracking app. You're going to have a food scale, and you're going to be weighing and tracking all of your food, not stressing about numbers or macros or any of that shit. Like, let's just see where you're naturally eating. You can have some awareness around what the online calculation or the calculation that I've given you is telling you, but I want you to be somewhat intuitive about things. And maybe about 3 or 4 days in, you're like, wow, I'm realizing I'm way under on carbs and proteins. And you're like way over on fats. Maybe now you're making some small adjustments to your food to slowly start to kind of increase the nutrients that your body needs. Again, still without looking to actually hit online calculations. We're just looking to get a basic 7 days of like food consistency to see where you're naturally falling. Second piece of this is we need to track your body composition. So you're going to take some starting photos. I know we all hate photos. We all want the transformation photo, but nobody wants the before photo, right? We got to take some starting photos, and you are going to want to weigh in daily. I say daily, but here's what I want you to understand. Your weight is going to fluctuate from day to day. You'll have days where it's up 2 pounds and days where it's down 1 pound. That's going to be a natural part of the process, right? Like that's totally normal. So what we want to do is with your 7-day food audit and your 7 days of daily weights, we want to have an average of both your calorie and your macronutrient intake and your daily weights. That's all we need for week 1, okay? In your food tracking app, it should tell you that what your weekly average is. It should also tell you what your weekly average weight is. If you're in my Jumpstart program, we will be able to track this stuff for you to show you, okay? From there, we want to start optimizing your macronutrients, not looking at calories per se, because not all calories are the same, and we need to know what nutrients you're deficient in, okay? That starts with making sure that your meals are balanced, getting all the components. It's not playing macro Tetris. It's simply saying that when I make breakfast and I have scrambled eggs and bacon and avocado, I'm learning what I'm missing from that meal. Wow, I've got fats from the avocado and the eggs, but there's not a whole lot of protein in the eggs and there's no carbs. So maybe we're adding in a little bit more protein and a little bit of carbs and cutting back on some of the fats, right? It's simply making some smart changes to start building balanced meals. Now what we're doing is we're simply adding a little bit to each meal and assessing appetite changes. In this process, you should also be working to have pretty routine meal times. And what you'll notice is as you develop more meal times with specific foods at those meals, your body's appetite cues will start coming back. You might start waking up like you're a little bit more hungry. You might start getting hungry a couple hours after breakfast. Like you might start noticing things changing, and that might scare you a little bit, but that's also good feedback. You might notice that you're feeling a little bit more energy in the gym. Okay. All we're doing is we're going to continue to add a little bit each week, anywhere from 100 to 200 calories, depending on how fast you want to move through this and truly how shitty you feel. And along this journey, you're also watching your weight trends. Again, not stressing about the weight fluctuations. You're simply looking at your weekly average. So even if your weight goes up and down in week 2, at the end of week 2, okay, because you're never force feeding yourself in this process. We're always going a little bit here and there. You're going to look at where your weekly average was from week 1 to week 2. If it's still the same, we're going to add a little bit more next week. And here's the final consideration that I'm going to give you with this is when you're adding in foods, if you're getting overly full, even though you're not adding in a lot of calories, it typically means you're adding in a little bit too much high volume and maybe need a little bit more density. If you've been chronically in a calorie deficit, you know all the food volume tricks. You need to allow yourself a little bit more calorie dense foods at your meals. And vice versa, if you're running out of calories very quickly in this process, you might be very conditioned to eat very calorie dense foods and not have realized that in your process of thinking that you were under eating, you were eating too many calories, but too much calorie dense foods. So we need to increase some of the volume. And that's going to be a matter of slowly introducing higher volume carbohydrates. Okay. So essentially over the 4 weeks, we're looking to increase calories. You should end up somewhere close to where that online calculator is. And at that point, what you should be assessing is how am I feeling? Am I still able to eat a little bit more? Like, am I still leaving my day feeling like I'm plugging and playing along the way, making sure I'm not going over on things? That's a sign that maybe you should be eating a little bit more. Do you still have food noise? Like you're still thinking about food a little bit more than you should be? Maybe you need a little bit more food, right? You can't really focus on things because you're thinking about your next meal. You might need a little bit more food. Hey, maybe you're about 100 or 200 calories under and you feel great. You're like, I feel awesome. That might be okay for you, but we need to look at the macros and where you're at and also assess like all of the feedback. And I think the hardest part about this is logic and emotion are so hard to separate when it comes to food because the logical piece of you isn't always going to be very easy to hear when the emotional piece of you has fear of like, am I eating too much? Is this going to cause me to gain weight? All these other thoughts that are going through your head. So we want to make sure that we are being logical and actually allowing for a 2 to 3 pound fluctuation. What's the worst that can happen if you're still feeling a little bit hungry and the weight goes up a pound or two? We can always pull back, right? Most importantly, you need to take this process seriously. No like 5 days on, 2 days off, and all that stuff. You might have higher calorie days, but we need to see the calories on those calorie days because on those higher calorie days to assess how that fits into the overall plan. Okay. That is how to reverse diet. Simple, not always easy, right? A lot of little things are going to come into play. What types of food should I be adding in? What do I do if I'm too full? Like, what do I do if I have a day where like I didn't get it? I missed a snack. Should I be eating at night? All those little questions, right? How to know when to increase. Should I increase if the weight goes up? These are all the things I'm going to be troubleshooting for you in the Jumpstart. Or if you want to work with me outside of the Jumpstart, I do also offer this as a 4-week process as well. So if you guys have any questions about reverse dieting, how to apply it, if you should be doing it, because everybody's different, I would love for you to reach out to me. I'm going to look over at the comments to see if anybody does have any specific questions. But if you don't feel comfortable talking about it online, I totally understand. I would probably much prefer having a DM conversation with somebody about my own fitness journey, and that's what I'm here for. I am a real person. By the way, if you ever reach out to me, just know that you're actually going to have to probably wait because you're actually waiting for me to respond, not a robot. So let's just see. Does anybody have any questions? I'm just looking at people over in the Instagram chat. I'm talking reverse dieting, eating more food, anything like that. I think one last thing that I didn't touch on is the concept of, will eating more help me lose weight? Some people will see weight loss in a reverse diet because if it regulates your appetite to where you're not over consuming calories on some days, and it brings up your energy on the days that you're under consuming, you actually might start to create a calorie deficit. However, that's usually not the goal. It's the side effect of it. The goal is it should be setting you up for a more successful fat loss journey. Any questions, comments, concerns? All right, last plug. It is 8:34 a.m. I will be working until about 10, and then I'm headed over to the gym for my workout, and then I got a packed afternoon before my Jumpstart call. So if you want in on the Jumpstart, you got to let me know. You got to shoot me a DM, FitBody. I will send you over the message or over the application, and I will get you in. Just bear with me. I probably will not get to your assessment today. However, you will be in the program. You will have access to the group chat. You will have access to your client dashboard and all that stuff. And then we will get you in. Stephanie's going to hate me for saying that because I know that she's going to get it done because she's awesome. I love you, Stephanie, if you're watching. All right. Well, I'm going to hop off, guys. I hope you guys all had an amazing Labor Day weekend, and I hope to see you guys all at my next episode.